Welcome back to Fast Politics, Stuart Stevens.
Thanks for asking me to the party, Molly.
So we find ourselves in a bad moment.
Oh,
Trump
it'll
v.
get worse.
Court.
These will be the good old days. Remember what it was like and heading into April of 25. Those were the golden days. This is like the early scenes in Cabaret, before.
Dogs don't like it. Tell me why you think this.
Well, I mean, I think that you clearly have, for the first time, certainly our lifetime, a president who cares nothing about the law, backed by a party that will remain silent, that will allow him to do whatever he wants. And that's pretty much a prescription for collapse of rule of law, which is their goal. I mean, it's been their goal for a long time. It is impossible to tell the difference if you read a transcript between who's talking, Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump. It's just Vladimir Putin's a little more articulate.
But let's focus on sort of what you think, because Putin, obviously, very scary comparison. None of us want to live in Russia circa to even 2025, right? I mean, it's just a super scary authoritarian country, right? So I'd love you to sort of talk us through kind of there's obviously on the world stage, Trumpism has radically reshaped the what it looks like, sort of NATO, etc. But in America, where we are now, what do you sort of see as the kind of scary pressure points? We're definitely seeing some institutions cave, but we're seeing other institutions not cave. And while there's a very neat narrative about how we saw this Democratic law firm, the head of it went and kissed the
Always.
ring, but we've also seen other very prominent law firms say they won't do that. So we've seen Columbia try to acquiesce to Trump, but we've seen the president of Princeton write a very good piece about how they're not going to do that. So there is definitely some amount of really scary pre-authoritarian stuff happening. We're also seeing the court stand up. So I would love you to sort of give us a fulsome kind of sense of where you think.
Yeah, I mean, look, do I think the American experiment is in its last hours? No, I don't. We've talked about this before. I think what happened in the election has been greatly misinterpreted as a seminal shift in American politics. It was an election in which a challenger was overwhelmingly favored to win. That challenger happened to be Donald Trump. We know that other challengers, like Nikki Haley, would have done better. So I don't think that that is a embrace of Trumpism. We know that they thought correctly that Project 2025 was poison, and now that people are drinking it, it's not going down any easier. But I think the frightening thing here is when you have someone like Tom Homan saying he doesn't care about due process. And you kind of have to play this out. You have a precedent of the president pardoning those who tried to kill United States senators and members of Congress.
Right.
So he stands up to a U.S. Marshal, tells a U.S. Marshal, I'm not going to do this. You don't have to enforce this. And I'm going to pardon you. Where does it hold? And at what point will democracy not be a partisan issue?
Right. And I think that's a really good point. And again, that is sort of the main ballgame, right? We have, and this is maybe the accelerationist case for Trumpism, right? We have Tom Homan saying very loudly, there's not any pretend here anymore.
There's no
There's
pretend.
not, you can't, even if you're Mitch McConnell, I mean, actually, I think John Thune is a better example, is you cannot make the excuse that you didn't see the tweets, right? Because J.D. Vance has said, impeach the judges. Elon Musk is giving money to people who are impeaching. They want to impeach the judges who aren't doing what they want. Tom Homan is saying he doesn't care about due process. There's no Justice Roberts saying any of this, right? They are saying what they're doing. They are not hiding it.
Yeah. So what happens if a Republican attorney general or Republican governor, it would be, orders the National Guard to arrest a judge?
Right.
How does that play out? I mean, I think those are the sort of things we need to be asking ourselves. I mean, the problem with the unimaginable is it's difficult to imagine. And Trump has always benefited from that. You couldn't imagine him
Right.
winning the nomination. You couldn't imagine him winning. You couldn't imagine him not conceding. You couldn't imagine him pardoning. Even J.D. Vance was saying he's not going to pardon those who tried to kill cops, and then he does. So I think, just as we said 9/11 was a failure of imagination, we
Right.
need to ask ourselves constantly, what failures of imagination are we counting on to save us? And I think it's the right questions to ask. And I don't think there's any questions that seem too off the mark. We've long since jumped the shark. I mean, this comment that about rule of law, due process that Holman made, if you play that out, that great interview that Jonathan Carl did, it is exactly what the Argentine Navy said to justify why they disappeared, tens of thousands of people. It's exactly what Pinochet used
Yeah.
to blow up a dissident on Massachusetts Avenue with a car bomb. The axis becomes not what's right or wrong, not what's lawful or illegal, not what is moral or immoral. The axis becomes who is with me, who is against me.
Yeah.
And that's how Trump sees the world. I think that if you go back and you read the long history of Peter Thiel, David Sachs, this weirdo group of what they
Right.
believe, they don't
Tech
believe in
feudalists.
democracy.
Yeah.
It's difficult to say that these crazy ideas they had are not coming to fruition to some degree. So you have Elon Musk now. He's going to be like advising on the war with China, except he doesn't want to go to war with China. You add on to that the unimaginable, unintended consequences of AI. It's very, very dangerous.
So here's a question for you. You know JD Vance. He was in 2016 a completely different person. He knows right from wrong. He knows left from right. He knows very smart, went to Ivy League law school, et cetera, et cetera. He is one of the people making these noises about impeaching judges who don't go along with Trumpism. So tell me what the thinking here is.
Look, I think J.D. Vance is someone who is very broken, who desperately needs approval. He desperately needed approval from a sort of Northeastern intellectual elite. So he wrote Hillbilly Elegy. In many ways, I mean, it's kind of a classic DEI story. If it
Right.
wasn't for that background, I'm sure the guy never would have gotten into Yale. I'd love to see his application to Yale. He was that for a while in 16, and then he went to work for Peter Thiel, and he became a globalist.
Right.
Peter Thiel, who's married to a man, gay, doesn't believe in democracy, wants to live forever, wants island nations, island states to replace current world order. So he was that. And then he moved
Right.
back to Ohio and reinvents himself as some sort of populist, anti-globalist, anti-China. He's the only guy who had involved in wildly successful hedge fund that was primarily invested overseas, who then attacked globalists. So,
Right,
and for each
right,
of these personas, he changed his physically location. He lived in Washington, he lived in San Francisco, lives in Ohio, and he sort of becomes a different person. So, I mean, what really struck me about J.D. Vance is when he went to Germany
yeah, that
and
was amazing.
spoke out in front of this far right party. That I was in Germany a couple of weeks ago and actually went to one of their rallies. And I can tell you that if J.D. Vance's wife and kids went to one of those rallies, unannounced as J.D. Vance's wife and kids, they would not be greeted warmly.
Right, it's
They
a
are not
very
the
scary.
right ethnicity.
Yeah.
And what does it say? His whole birthright citizenship. So his wife would be illegal if there was not birthright citizenship, because her parents were not American citizens when she was born, and
So
thus
what
became an American.
so what do you think the thinking here is, that it just won't apply to them, or you think it's just sort of
I think that they think that they will not be held accountable because Trump wasn't held accountable.
right.
So I think
But
that is the great danger of the failures of the way that Merrick Garland ran the
Democrats.
Justice Department.
Yeah, Merrick Garland, what a mistake. But also, one of the things that when we're talking about this, that I see is J.D. Vance is wildly unpopular. His poll numbers are just through
Always
the
has been.
floor. And so is Elon, right? Elon is also wildly unpopular. So you have Trump, who is popular and who has his own political gravity that he defies every day, right? He can, for whatever reason, voters like him in a way they don't like Republicans. So you have him, and then you have all of the people around him. So now Trump had this very good approval rating, like shockingly in January, sort of the best he's ever had, right? He got that bump, the pre inauguration bump. Now he's coming back down to sort of
Hmm.
more of where he has historically been. My question is, does at some point Trump, like right now, Trump 2.0 looks so radically different than Trump 1.0, right? Trump 1.0 was him doing crazy stuff and people cleaning up around him. This time it feels like the whole thing is Elon doing a lot of stuff and Trump just sort of going along with it. So at some point, does Trump 1.0 emerge, or is Trump 2.0 so diminished that he just allows Elon to run this presidency?
I think you'll have Trump 3.0. I think it's only going to get worse. I think Trump is mainly focused on making money now. And I don't think he intends to run again. I don't think he cares at all whether or not, he leaves a legacy that one of his children could get elected. Basically, if Tony Soprano was president and was in the crypto business. So I think he's about creating vast wealth that will be unreachable, that he will be able to have after his presidency, that he will use in part to control the party. And I think that what he loves about Elon Musk is Elon Musk has a history of securing power and making those around him very wealthy. Scott Galloway is just absolutely on point when he talks about, and Kara Swisher, the moral collapse of the Tesla board, which
Right.
is being challenged, of course, in court, his compensation package. I really think that they envision a world that is, to the extent Trump's capable of envisioning anything, that is very different. I
Right.
really do think that they believe that we're in a transition stage away from democracy to something else. I think Elon Musk whispering in his ear is very good at that. He's always been very good at pitching a future that wasn't going to happen,
Right.
which is a lot to do with why Tesla stock is so overvalued.
Right.
This idea that we're going to colonize Mars in 30 years, it's insane. But in our culture, we value those who are wealthy and give them more respect and honor than they deserve. So, you hear about these cabinet meetings where he's talking to someone like Marco Rubio, who had a negative net worth most of his life until he wrote a book, a guy who was a state legislature and a lobbyist, never been financially secure. He looks at him and dismisses him and go like, who are you? I'm the wealthiest man in the world. So I think that they really think that they are reshaping the world,
Right.
including America.
But you got protests everywhere, right? You could see protests everywhere. I mean, I walk down the street, run into protests everywhere. See an enraged Democratic Party furious with their leadership,
Yep.
right? Protests in front of Schumer's house. You got Republicans not doing town halls now. So there's clearly people are not
Mhm.
happy, and they haven't even really implemented a lot of the changes they want to make, right? So they're not happy now. Wait till
Right.
people can't get Social Security. Wait till people can't get wait till Medicaid, where they get rid of Medicaid expansion.
You skip
So
a month in Social Security.
right. So my question is more, Trump doesn't care about the future of the Republican Party. He never has. But someone does, right? Or maybe they don't. I mean, doesn't it feel like this is gonna be bad for them?
Well, look, I think they are paralyzed by their own fear, their own
Right.
cowardness. Trump is very transactional, and they see that Trump has given them in charge of the three elements of American government. that they wouldn't have without Trump, particularly senators. I know I've been with them a lot in these back rooms. They get there and they convince themselves that because they're all doing it, it must be okay, which is basically how mobs work. This is how lynch mobs work. They
Right.
can't be that bad. I know this person, he's a good person. He's there. We're doing the right thing. And they get little victories. I'm sure if you're a senator and you have some little victory, a program is going to still get funded or something. That's what you focus on. But it's sort of a lack of the big picture. Now, look, I can easily make a case, and I believe this, but I think it's important not to really talk about it that much
Right.
because, I think this is the high water mark of Trumpism. I think this is Trumpism's pick its straw.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is as far as they're going to get for all these reasons you're talking about. What they're, as my old friend and client Haley Barber says, in politics, eventually you have to be for something that people like.
Right.
And, it's sort of a basic truth. I think that that's the case. The danger is the degree to which they're undermining the process of government.
Right.
I used to read these sort of scenarios that was going to declare martial law, that we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and just laugh and say, like, these people know nothing about politics. Now I read them and I ask myself, maybe I don't know anything about politics.
Right. Right.
I famously and stupidly
I'm
said
nervous about
back in
it.
16 that if Trump won, it would mean everything we thought about politics was wrong.
Right.
And I was right. I mean,
Yeah.
I was, everything I thought about politics was wrong. And I
Right.
have to admit that. I don't know. And you have a Supreme Court that is very erratic, that is basically given Trump permission to assassinate political leaders if he feels they're a threat to the country.
Right. I mean,
Um,
hopefully that is not how he reads it, but yes, for
Yeah,
sure.
but what would happen? I mean, if I just woke you up in the middle of the night a year ago and said, "Look, Pete Hegseth's going to be Secretary of Defense. You're going to have Cass Patel at the FBI, Don Bongino. You're going to have this woman most known for shooting her dog in the face in
Right.
Homeland Security,
Uh,
and you'll have a Russian asset as head of national intelligence, and Trump talking about invading Canada and Greenland."
right.
We all would have said that's insane, but that's where we are. I don't know. I mean, I think that we really have to press ourselves to visualize the works and do everything we can to stop that.
No.
Which is what you do every day. It's what we do at the Lincoln Project. It's what we're doing at Lincoln Square, our new Substack. And it's what, a lot of these law firms are, Mark Elias, all of them. But I go back to this moment when Tom Cotton, senator from Arkansas, the other day was attacking judges' decisions of due process.
Mhm.
So you go back to 1957, the then governor of Arkansas, Orville Faubus, who actually had been a very moderate to liberal guy, who probably was doing it because he was worried about the fact that he needed to appeal more to the segregationist vote. He refuses to implement Brown versus Board of Education in Central
Mm.
High School and integrate Central High School, the largest public high school in Little Rock. So what happens? He calls out the National Guard to block this. What happens? The President of the United States, Dwight Eisenhower, calls out the 101st fucking Airborne and sends them to Little Rock, Arkansas. So you got the 101st Airborne versus a bunch of weekend warriors in National Guard. That's not a fair fight. So he didn't federalize the National Guard. So now we
Yeah.
have the reverse. We have a
Um,
president who would send the 101st Airborne to back up the National Guard
mm.
that was refusing court orders. And even in 57, if you're not into Arkansas and stuff, he closed the public schools for a year.
Stuart Stevens, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
always
Really
just a ray of
appreciate
sunshine.
you.